Hello and welcome to Underlords Universe, where we chit chat about all kinds of stuff that we are inspired by to create our own stuff. By stuff, I mean like music and stories and things like that. So today, my brother and colleague Brent, we are gonna have a little discussion about the brand new Ace Frehley album that just came out. We've been longtime Ace and Kiss fans. But before we get into that, real quick, if you are just stumbling across us, it'd be really cool if you um, subscribed and rang the little bell. And also, if we're really off on our comments about Ace Frehley and the new album, feel free to comment below. It'd be really helpful. So let's see here. I just mentioned we make our own stuff. I'm also gonna put a little link down below to one of the pieces of stuff that we've recently created. It's a song. It's about a 7.5 minute song that features Blaze Bayley, former Iron Maiden vocalist. He was really generous in helping us out with that one. It turned out really, really great. So please check that out. I'm also going to say, I think that song that we did better than anything on the new Ace Frehley. Oh, I actually said that. That's arrogant as hell. But I actually believe that. Sorry. That's not.
Okay, we're going to find out today if we both agree with that. But I will say that the song we did with Blaze is really good. I would
You,
hope.
you
I
know,
hope
I I'm just being provocative. I'm just pushing buttons. I mean, I really love it. I really do. But I'm just being provocative. These things are all a matter of taste, ultimately. And when it comes to music and art in general, is there a right or a wrong? I don't think so. Someone could listen to what we put out and go, my gosh, that is the worst stuff imaginable. You like what you like. And if you don't like something, you don't like something. And if you love what we put out, that's fantastic. And if you can't stand it, that's fantastic too, because it's just art and it's just people's opinions. And here you're here to discuss this brand new Ace Frehley album. What was his last album? Came out what, 4 years ago? I want to
the
say.
last the last one of all new studio songs,
Oh,
not
that's right,
count.
because that's right. The last one was a cover
Right.
album,
Space,
correct?
yeah,
It was,
Spaceman would come out like in 2018, I think. So
yeah,
the
yeah,
last one of all original material would have been, I think, 2018.
2018. So it has been a while, but it's funny because despite that little lag, he's been more productive later in his career than he was obviously, in the 80s and 90s. So
Mhm.
especially in the 90s, really. Except, well, of course he was back with Kiss in the 90s, so you got to,
Right.
you know, account for that. But at any rate, the new album 10,000 Volts, the lead single was the title track 10,000 Volts. And my first impression of the single when it came out was, yeah, okay. I mean, sounds pretty much like an Ace song, kind of a dumb lyric, but I mean, it was okay. Uh, it didn't blow me away. I was just kind of like, oh, it's an Ace song. There you go.
Right.
But but I thought the production was really tight. I mean, everything. I mean, in a certain way, it sounds great. But my first
Mhm.
thought was it doesn't quite sound as much like Ace. Like
Mhm.
there's a little bit of an Ace rock vibe that just doesn't seem to be there. It seems almost a little too tight, too crisp. Uh, Not that that's a bad thing. It's just kind of one of my reactions to it. So
Mhm.
I don't know. We don't need to hit this in terms of in order track by track. I think we can just kind of go with our general feelings. I think it's at some point here we'll end up talking about pretty much all of them anyway. Uh, what did you think of the first single? First couple
My
singles. Walking on the Moon was the next single.
Yeah, my reaction was pretty much the same. The first one I thought was pretty good. Again, sounded great. Um, I did have some of the same thoughts that you did in terms of the production, the crispness, how tight everything was.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I did have to listen to the record a couple, three times or so, like the full album, to kind of get a real good feel for how I felt about the record in total.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of, and I that's when I rated it after I listened to it 2 or 3 times. But in terms of the first single, I liked the lead single. I didn't like Walking on the Moon quite as much. I thought the video was, and I understand there's a little bit of cheese involved, and I think even Ace would admit that.
In
I
the
thought
video, or the video or the song?
in in the video for Walking on the Moon,
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I thought the video was a little bit too cheesy. I don't I don't dislike the song. I thought 10,000 Volts was a better song than Walking on the Moon. And then when we got to Cherry Medicine, the third single, again, I thought it was okay. It wasn't earth shaking. Um, again, the production before I got the record, all we heard was those 3 songs, right?
Yeah.
10,000 Volts, Walking on the Moon, Cherry Medicine. And my overall impression was, okay, it's an Ace album. Ace sounds pretty good for being a guy who's 72. Catchy, the production sounds good. But as you and I have said, when you get the record, that's when it really, it really hits you as to what you have. So the 3 singles and the 3 songs were very dissimilar. I mean, 10,000 Volts, Walking on the Moon, Cherry Medicine, they really don't have a whole lot to do with each other, in my opinion. Stylistically, they're kind of different. Cherry Medicine is probably one of the most commercial things that he's done, right? And maybe that was one of the intents with this record, was to try to be a little more accessible, perhaps. But those 3 songs, I think they're maybe you would agree, maybe you wouldn't, kind of indicative of what the rest of the album is like.
Yeah, I do think. I think that's a fair statement. Personally, I thought the video for Walking on the Moon was actually great because it's just so cheesy. But we're here to, really talk about the music itself. I thought, weirdly enough, I thought the song Walking on the Moon was, I liked it better than 10,000 Volts, but there is one little thing about it that just, it drives me nuts, and once it popped out of me, I can't ignore it. And it's the way the K sounds when he says, or when he sings walking. It's like walking. It's like it jumps out at me so glaringly that it's just, it really detracts. And it's like I actually have to dock that song simply because of that one thing. And it's like, man, how did that, and maybe it's just me, maybe it's just my ears, I don't know, but I yeah, I think it could have been a better song just because of that one little thing. But, and you mentioned Cherry Med. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you when we were first talked about Cherry Medicine, you commented how about I was Cherry Medicine.
That's in my notes.
Medicine, and it's like, then I went back and listened to the song again. I'm like, oh yeah, and it's not just as the thick Bronx accent, which we've grown used to, and I mean that's fine. And of course he's not the most gifted vocalist in the world anyway. But now I can't listen to that song and not think about Cherry Medicine.
Well,
so,
yeah.
Well, I thank you for that. Thank you.
Well, you can thank me, or if you liked it more before, then maybe you can blame me.
Well, it's interesting because I did go back and there was one song that I went back and reevaluated, really, because I had to. When I went back and listened to it again, it was kind of like I had one of these moments where I was like, you got to be kidding me. This is on Ace. Okay, all right. And then I was like, okay,
which song is that? Which song are you talking about?
It was Constantly Cute.
That song is stupid.
I'm sorry, I can't. Yeah, so I mean, we can go in and talk about how we gave some individual grades and whatnot, and I have some general notes I'd like to talk about. But that song is ridiculously dumb, and why I even considered giving it anything more than what I actually eventually gave it. And I was being generous. My note says seriously ? Next to Constantly Cute. One of the things that I find, and you and I can, and I'm just kind of throwing this out there to try to maybe direct our conversation a little bit at this point. We're going to be doing an episode, I think, of Ace's post-Kiss solo album career, if I'm not mistaken. That's kind of on the, and I'm going backwards and reviewing the albums going backwards. I just got done doing Anomaly today, and I'll probably do another one or two over the next couple of days. But this album, he made such a big deal about working with Steve Brown from Trickster. That he and Steve have this great working relationship and this great rapport. And Steve's a gifted engineer. He's a great guitar player. He's a great vocalist. All these things, and that all might be true. But when you listen to and you made this point early on when we got this record. You said, I don't. One of your first comments to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said, I don't hear Ace as much on this record. I hear Trickster. My response to that initially was, I don't know Trickster's music that well, so I don't really know what he's talking about. But then when you go back and you listen to this record, and then you listen to like Spaceman,
Mm-hmm.
or you listen to Anomaly,
Mm-hmm.
there's a difference.
Yeah.
There's a
Now,
marked difference. This album, it kind of lost a little bit of that Ace touch, if you will, that I find is very prevalent on Spaceman, for example.
mm-hmm.
So that might be, and feel free to let me know if that's kind of what you were talking.
It is, but here's the thing. I just said a moment ago, I think, constantly cute. I think it's stupid. And if Ace were here in the room, he might laugh and say, "Well, of course it is." Or he might say, "Ah, come on, it's just a little, fun or whatever."
Right.
And so, again, I don't knock anybody for having a different point of view, and that includes Ace himself, and that also includes the fact that, why should a new album sound exactly like, previous albums? I don't think it should. Maybe the fact that he's collaborating with, I'm sorry, what's his name again? Is it Scott Brown?
Steve
Steve
Brown.
Brown. I apologize. Steve Brown. I mean, so, good for him. He's collaborating with somebody. They're writing together. Somebody, Steve Brown's bringing in some new ideas and stuff. And at Ace's age, why shouldn't he be able to explore that? And the question is, just, does it resonate with me? Overall, generally speaking, it doesn't. But it's just an opinion. It's just a perspective. But I do think Constantly Cute. It just isn't my thing. Let me put it that way. And
No.
And I also think Cherry Medicine, that what's the lyric in it? Something about make you feel better in your black leather or whatever.
Right.
I just that's just not my thing. And
Well,
it's weird because it's just like, are there songs on albums that I love that have just as dumb a lyrics? And yeah, there are. It's hard to explain why in some circumstances a lyric just tanks a song for me, but in other situations I'm more accepting of a bad lyric.
Well, I would wager a guess that it probably depends on the quality of the music. Like if Cherry Medicine had the baddest riff he'd ever written and some really hot guitar work, you'd probably forgive the lyric or the vocal.
Yeah, that could be it. It also could be a matter of, when did I get into something? I might be more forgiving if I was 12 years old when I got into a song that looking back is kind of stupid, and I might have a soft spot for it. Or it could be the way a lyric is delivered. Like maybe a lyric is delivered in a way that's the words themselves are kind of stupid, but maybe it's delivered in a way that's a little bit more subtle. Or to your point, the music itself just is so great that you just can kind of forgive a bad lyric. But Cherry Medicine is not one of those for me personally. For me, if I had to rank the three singles, I'd probably say, as a song, Walking on the Moon first, then 10,000 Volts, then Cherry Medicine. On the other hand, I actually feel like 10,000 Volts, it just sounds a little more Ace-ish to me, especially in the chorus when he kind of sings up that register. He goes 10,000 volts. Like it sounds very Acey to me right there. It's like that's kind of the melodic part of Ace that I want to hear. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Back Into My Arms was actually an old Ace song.
Yes, that was written in the mid '80s, and that's probably my favorite song on the record. And I wish it was longer. I think it's a really good song. But yeah, that was written I think around '85 or so. demoed it back in '85 and never recorded it until now, obviously, almost 40 years later.
Had you heard it before?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, the demo. Yep.
see, I don't think I ever had. So to me, it's completely new. Um, I don't like it at all. It's
Oh,
like no, I
and that's one that's not tricksterized, because that song's been around for such a long time, and it's pretty true to the original demo. If you listen to the original, it's the original demo's maybe like another minute and a half longer. The outro is extended. I
mhm,
do like the melody. I do like the different guitar work that he did on it. I think the solo is pretty nice,
mhm,
nice, snappy. I think overall, just in terms of the production and the guitar work, Steve Brown swears that there's no auto tuning. If anybody's watched Ace, and I'm not trying to rag on the guy. I love Ace, and we've seen him with Kiss. We've seen him perform as a solo artist. We have all of his stuff. If you've seen Ace play live recently, like within the last year or so, the
mhm,
performance I've seen on YouTube are pretty bad. So they went out of their way to make sure people understood there was no Ace. He's singing. This is him just singing in the studio. We didn't really doctor anything. I have a little bit of a hard time with that. I don't really know if that's true, but it doesn't matter, because I think he sounds great on the record. Pretty much all throughout. I'm not really a lyric guy as much as a melody guy. I've pretty much always been that way. If the lyric is really stupid, it will detract from me, but for the most part, I'm really more about the melody. Um, and I think his vocals do sound really good on the record. Ace has made it very clear that he can write lyrics really quick. Yeah, that's pretty evident. He's not a gifted lyricist. I'm not really either, but it is interesting that he's writing songs at his age now about things that he wrote about back when he was in Kiss 40 some years ago, that he hasn't moved on. Not that you have to, but I think, through some, like maybe Blinded, for example, is a little bit more deep lyrically than perhaps, Cherry Medicine or what have you. But
mhm.
if you're looking for deep lyrics, you won't find them here. But you will find, I think, a good vocal performance. The record sounds amazing. One of my problems with the record on the whole is the endings of the songs. They just have these quick, fast fades, which I think is lazy writing and or lazy producing. It's like the song, like for example, you mentioned Back Into My Arms Again. I was not expecting that fade to happen when it happened. It just all of a sudden it fades, it quick, and it's out. And it's like that's kind of a recurring theme with some of these songs. I know you and I generally don't like fade outs. We like some resolution and endings to the songs. You won't find that on this record. I think it's, like I said, I think it's kind of lazy songwriting and or lazy production. Um, so if you want to kind of bounce any ideas off of that, when I just kind of tossed your way, feel free. Maybe we can hit some high
Yeah,
points if you low
yeah.
point. I
I,
do I do general notes on some songs too that we can kind of walk through, but I kind of want to turn it over to you after I kind of went on a 2 or 3 minute.
yeah, just overall, I don't think his vocal the thing I have about his vocals, and he's always done this to a certain degree. He'll sing a line, and then uh the last word in a line he'll descend flat.
Mm-hmm.
Like yeah, yeah, yeah. Like every line kind of and instead of holding the note, instead of
Yeah,
holding,
yeah,
if he's singing, if the word he's singing in the last syllable is like a G, he doesn't hold it at a G, he just drops it. It just you know, and he's always done that a little bit. It kind of has a bit of a talky quality to it, but I
yes.
think that there's a lot more of it. It's just more pronounced on this record. So even though I think pitch wise throughout a verse or a chorus, it's fine. Whether there's pitch correction being used or not, I don't know. But from a producer standpoint, it'd be like, hey, Ace, sing that last line again and hold that note. Don't dive bomb those notes like that. Now you could say that, well, that's just his style, and it
Mm.
kind of is. I just think it's a little more pronounced, and it just kind of was more noticeable to me this time, and I'm like, oh man, I don't know if it's really working here. Um, as far as high points, I would say "Fighting for Life" that's a good song. I think "Fighting for Life," "Blinded," "Up in the Sky," and "Stratosphere." Those are my four. songs on here that I think are the top songs. Fighting for Life, Blinded, Up in the Sky, Stratosphere. However, I don't, on our 5-point scale, I wouldn't give any of those more than a 3.
Okay,
Every
well,
everything else on here is lower than that. I gave Cherry Medicine a 1.5 star, and I'm not even sure if I would. Maybe I was being generous. Constantly Cute, same. Back into My Arms, I only give 2. Just it's not that I'm not trying to say these are bad songs. They're just not songs that resonate with me. I try to want to be respectful of the fact that people can have different opinions because music hits people differently. And someone might listen to Constantly Cute and go, "Oh, yeah, it's fun. It's great." Or they might listen, like you said, you thought Back into My Arms was the best song on the record. It's just not my thing. Um, but yeah, overall I'm disappointed by the record, but at the same time, I'm glad he's putting stuff out, and I'm glad that he's working with people that he wants to work with, and you know, there's only so many more Ace Frehley albums we're gonna get, and I mean, who knows? You never know. This could be the last one. We don't know. We don't know what the future holds. So, I try not to be too negative, even though I'm a little disappointed. Does that make any sense?
yeah, and I'm gonna just kind of bounce off what you just put out there. Well, I do think "Back into My Arms Again" is one of the better songs on the record. If I had to pick a favorite, it probably would be "Fighting for Life." I
Mhm.
think that probably has his best solo on the album.
Mm.
Um, I do like how "Cosmic Hearts" kind of got a nice, thick, heavy, sludgy riff. I think that's kind of cool.
What do you
I
think
do
of the
think
What do you think of the chorus on Cosmic Heart?
it's a little cheesy.
Okay.
Okay, it's kind of cheesy. I do think 10,000 Volts might be the most Ace-like song on the record, if I can use that term, if it is a term. Um, Looking at my notes, I thought Ace at times on Blinded sounded a little bit like Lips from Anvil. I could hear Lips singing Blinded, and I think vocal wise, I think Ace and Lips, there's some similarities there in terms
Interesting.
of their tonality and their delivery. Um, I mentioned Constantly Cute. I can't really forgive that song. If I to be perfectly honest, I probably rated it too high at 1.5 stars. Up in the Sky, I really quite like. I gave that 3.5. It has like a semi New York groove guitar riff in it. If you haven't noticed that, go
Mhm.
check it out. That's also got another really good solo. I thought Stratosphere was okay. I gave that a 3. I gave Fighting
Agreed.
for Life, My Arms Again. I gave those 4s, and then everything else was a 3.5 or less, with
Mhm.
the worst rating being Constantly Cute at 1.5. So
Mhm.
for me, on an average, it was a 3-star album, and around 63%, 64%. So not a complete train wreck. Um, I'm sure I'm going to enjoy the record. I'm glad he's putting things out. He said he's going to do an Origins Volume 3 next.
Oh, really?
Yep. Um, he said that he's going to start working on that. So I think we'll get more from Ace. I'm not sure when he'll do his next solo record. I mean, if he waits 5 years to do the next one, he'll be close to 80. Now that's
That's
kind of a
right,
stretch,
man. Yeah.
but
But you know what?
but
The Rolling Stones just put out a new album last year. So, hey, right?
they did.
Yeah,
They did.
there you go.
Um, so the record sounds good. I'm with you. I think he's in a good place, creativity wise. I'm glad that he's working with people he enjoys working with. If that's going to help his output, I think that's great. I just want as much music from as many guys like Ace as I can get. And that even though the record might be not everything I wanted it to be, I'm very glad that he put out a record for us in 2024. And I hope there are more records to come.
Yeah. And I don't want to nitpick this. It's a little weird because I try to be consistent and I don't want to be, hypocritical, but like, I mean, if you go back to the Fraley's Comet albums, there's stuff on there that you could say isn't quote unquote Ace like. I mean, something moved.
Right.
That's Todd Howarth, right? And it's like, but it's great. I mean, I love that song, and or on Trouble Walking, which is billed as just an Ace Frehley album, Too Young to Die, which Richie Scarlett sings, and it's like I don't know. I mean, I'm totally cool with him collaborating with other people. Um, this one it just didn't hit the mark
Well,
the way I was hoping. So yeah.
well,
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
what I said to a friend of mine uh, was, yeah, I mean, on the one hand, you can say, oh, yeah, it's great Ace put out another record at his age, but that doesn't automatically mean it's a good record that you have to like it. So, those are two completely different things. I don't dislike, I think you actively dislike the record, and correct me if I'm wrong. I don't dislike it. I do like it. But he, as I said, going back in the catalog, he's definitely done better.
Well, it's funny here. You said that we're going to be ranking and rating and ranking the Ace Frehley catalog, and we will. And I've gotten through all of them already recently and gone through that, and I think there's some surprises in there. I think that in our past we've discussed an album or two from his past that we would have said is pretty subpar. So the question is, well, where does this stack up to the rest of his catalog? We'll see when we get to that. For me, overall, this came out in terms of an average at 2.7. So I'd round that to like 2.5 stars out of 5, which isn't great. The percentage came out to 49.1%.
That's pretty bad. I dare say it's about probably as bad a rating as you've had with all the records that we've listened to.
Yeah. So it's unfortunate, but you know what? Then again, at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and say, "Oh my God, this sucks," because that's a matter of opinion. And I don't think it sucks. I just think it's Ace going down a road and doing some things that maybe didn't resonate as much with me, and that's fine. I'm not going to discourage anybody from checking it out, especially in this day and age when unfortunately you can hear a whole album without paying for it at all. If you're an Ace fan, give it a shot. Listen to the whole thing. Maybe the work he's doing with Steve Brown is right up your alley. Just didn't quite hit the mark for me. So there we go. And any last thoughts from your?
No, well, to kind of to piggyback off of that, oftentimes the lead singles are not the best songs on the record. If you just heard 10,000 Volts, Walking on the Moon, and Cherry Medicine, and you thought, oh, this album's really not for me, then you would have missed Fighting for Life or Up in the Sky. Up in the Sky is a song.
Yeah,
I like
a good song. Yeah,
fun song. There's some good stuff on the record, and you're not going to hear that unless you dig into the record. So I would encourage people to check it out.
Yeah, that's the thing is, don't confuse a lower rating for an album to mean that every single song on it is somehow a train wreck. That's not true. There are good songs on average albums. So there's great songs on average albums. It's just, so check it out. Yeah. At any rate, speaking of checking things out, thanks for checking this out. And if we're way off on our comments, our points of view, feel free to respond, offer your own perspectives, and just be civil about it. That's all we ask. And check out our new single, Ordo Abstrusus Oculus, featuring Blaze Bayley. And if you don't like that, God bless you. But if you do, that's great too. So until next time, thanks for checking it out.